For the past 3.5 years, as chairperson of the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples and former executive director of the National Task Force LCAT to end the local communist armed conflict, I have personally witnessed how government bureaucracy works and how NCIP personnel responded to the problems confronting our indigenous cultural communities and indigenous peoples all over the country. I have acquired first-hand experience on how the burning issues raised by the ICC's have been acted upon by our personnel. All this I have seen, heard, and felt during my ancestral domains visitations in almost all ancestral domains all over the country for the last 3.5 years. Having experienced the foregoing, I have come to the realization that there is a need to extend to the President all the help that he needs in order for him to carry out a cleansing process within and among the offices under the executive branch. It is of vital importance that activities within the ancestral domain be recognized as part of the 13 economic drivers of our country, and that our IPs are only too willing to become major partners of the government in national unity, peace, and development. Thus, I hereby call on NCIP officials and personnel to voluntarily tender their resignation. Said call is directed to those who are no longer effective in the performance of their respective mandates and to those who are unable and unwilling to respond to the legitimate burning issues raised by the ICC's IPs and which have remained unacted upon for several years now, such that a number of NCIP personnel themselves have become a part of the problem. Further, there are those who respond half-heartedly, thereby aggravating the problem instead of solving the same. It is for this reason that I filed cases also against a number of our personnel in the Ombudsman. Likewise, I have personally witnessed how some NCIP LCAT personnel failed to refuse to act in accordance with the above purpose of the task force to become purpose of the task force. Such inaction would ultimately cause the NCIP LCAT to become irrelevant. The absence of a formal handover of the series of presentations of the former leadership of the NCIP LCAT to the present leadership has exacerbated the situation. Thus, I also call for the voluntary tender resignation of some members of the Secretariat of the NCIP LCAT who failed to perform concrete actions since the start of the administration of President Marcos, thereby making the task force irrelevant and unresponsive to developments on the ground. I'm saying this because the success of the NCIP LCAT is also the success of the ICC's IPs in the different ancestral domains all over the country. I also challenge and request local officials or members of the local government units and members of other agencies to fight for the rights of the indigenous peoples in order to make sure that they do not become wittingly or unwittingly instruments in the perpetration of unlawful acts constituting violations of Republic Act 8371, otherwise known as the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997. The principal violations here is the selling and the buying of ancestral land. Let us all help and support the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Mabuhay ang mga katutubo, mabuhay ang Pilipinas.